In this video, we're going to give you 10 top tips to catch your enemies off guard and get the perfect timing inside Warzone. If you enjoy weapon stat breakdowns, weapon comparisons, and overall tips and tricks, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and click that link in the description and subscribe to our second channel as we're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers over there too. Catching enemies off guard is all about timing inside Warzone. If you get the timing perfect, you can get some really easy kills, and this video is going to give you 10 tips to do that. The first tip I don't see enough people do, and that is pushing fights early game. As soon as you get a decent gun and armor plates, you should be looking for enemies to push and kill, as these are going to be your easiest kills you'll get in the entire game, because all of the enemies will have only ground loot weapons. Not only that, some of the enemies might only have the starting pistol, and people are usually trying to complete contracts or loot up during this time, so you'll definitely catch them off guard as they're going to assume you're doing the same thing, whereas you're actually pushing them for a fight. On top of that, it's really easy to find enemies as well, because most of the ground loot weapons do not have suppressors, so you will see them on the minimap. The next tip leads on to this actually, and that is making sure you third-party fights. Third partying is such an easy way to get kills inside Warzone, because you're not only going to get more kills because there's two enemy teams there and they're focused on each other, and even if you arrive there a little too late to kill both of the enemy teams, the team that did win that fight might be down a few players, so you have an advantage there. They might not have any armor plates as well, so you can get some really easy kills. So make sure you keep an eye out for tracers being fired across your screen, or tracers being fired in a certain direction, and on top of that, listen out for gunfire, because that is where enemy teams will be fighting. Another really easy way to indicate a third party is that if you pop a UAV and let's say you're playing duos and you see 4 pings pop up in the same location, that means the enemy team is either close to fighting or very likely already fighting in that area. So make sure you position yourself well and get some really easy kills. The next tip is keeping an eye out for enemy teams crossing out into open space or rotating through open land, and usually this is the river area between like downtown and hospital, for example. These are going to be some of the really easy kills that you'll get, because the enemy team does not have any cover to hide behind, and you're catching such an awkward timing for them that they're not really expecting a fight right now. What they actually want to do is cross over into safety, but you're really getting them in their vulnerable spot. The next tip is about downed opponents, and it's really important you do not finish them straight away. This allows you to do 2 things. Enemy players are going to want to revive their teammates, so they're going to push you, and you should expect this, of course, but they're also going to want to revive their teammate because he's probably going to be screaming at them down the microphone. And then you'll get one of 2 players, and this is all about your audio. You need to make sure you're listening out for that revive sound. So if the player goes to revive their teammate, you'll hear the revive sound, and that is when you need to push in and kill them both, because they're both going to be down on the ground. One's going to be reviving and one's going to be down and can't actually do anything, and it's going to be such an easy kill. And then if you come up against some of the more skilled players, they'll try and look for you and be very aggressive to try and kill you as quick as possible so they can get to reviving their teammate straight after that. So make sure you position yourself well to kill that second player, and those will be some of the easiest kills you'll get in Warzone. The next tip, and something that I've started doing a lot more recently, is actually pushing teams that have bought loadout drops. Now, enemy teams are not going to expect you pushing them because they think they've got the upper hand because they've got their loadout guns. But what that means for you is that you know exactly where the full enemy team is. Let's be honest, we all want our guns and we all want our perks, so everyone is going to be on that loadout drop. So if you can time your push just as they're collecting their guns, you'll get some really easy kills, and there's a high risk versus reward here as well, because if they manage to collect their loadout guns, you've got some free loadout guns that you didn't even have to pay for. The next tip is a kind of 2-in-1 tip, and this is all about timing your fights. Now, first of all, overall, your gunfight should not take any longer than 60 seconds to at least down 1 enemy player. If it takes longer than that, you're pretty much in the wrong gunfight in my opinion. You should not be sitting there trying to snipe an enemy team from miles away, downing a player, then he gets revived, and then downing him again, then he gets revived again. This is just a waste of time. You want to be in a good enough position where you can down a player or a few players and then push that team and wipe them out pretty quickly. And like I said, overall, I believe the first down should take no longer than 60 seconds. Next is timing your minigun fight. So let's say you're in a 2v1 situation and both of these players are pushing you. You need to know roughly how long it's going to take you to kill one of these players, and then that allows you to move on to focus on the second player, because if you're wasting too long on just killing one of those two guys, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you can get team shot at and you've got no chance at beating these players. So what you want to do first of all is make sure you're isolating the fights. That's really important, getting one player at a time, and then knowing what the rough TTK of the gun you're using is. Now, just a general rule of thumb, most of the SMGs in the game on average kill in around about 600 milliseconds. Now, of course, that is if you're perfectly landing every single shot, and not all of us are perfect. We're going to be missing some bullets, of course. The way I think about it is that you need 10 seconds to down at least the first player. Now, it actually could be less time than this depending on how aggressive the players are, but 10 seconds overall for the average player is actually not too bad. What you need to do is figure out the location of both of the enemy players, if you're playing duos, for example. Then what you want to do is isolate one of the guys and then down them and move on to reloading your weapon and focusing on the next guy. Now, what I've just given you is pretty much a perfect example, and it doesn't always work like this, and sometimes you are caught off guard yourself sometimes. And this follows into my next tip. Try not to always play up. If you know you've got an enemy downed and the other enemy player's weak, then make sure you just challenge that straight away, because they're not really going to expect you doing this. They want you to sit in a corner and play up because they need to do the exact same thing. So if you're weak and they're weak, try and win that gunfight if you know you're slightly better skilled. And you'll see a lot of pro players do this constantly. They rather catch better timing than sitting and plating up. They'll always cancel armor plating just to get the finish or get the kill, and that is how they get so many kills inside Warzone. And this leads me on to my next point, and this is the fact that a lot of the pro players actually use low time to kill guns, especially in close quarters gunfights. At long range, you can get away with using like a Grau, for example, because you've got a lot of time to plate up before an enemy can actually push you. But if you're at close range, you do want to use a Cold War MP5, a AS Val, some of the shotguns in the game, and this will allow you to down enemy players very quickly, so you can focus on the second player, the third player, and even the fourth player if you're playing in a solo quad situation. And we have tons of videos on the channel that you can watch at the end of this one that will show you what the best close range weapons are inside Warzone. And the last and final tip for catching better timing and catching enemy players off guard is make sure you utilize your ADS walking movement speed. A lot of the Cold War SMGs actually have a really quick aim down sight walking movement speed, and this allows you to aim and walk without making so much noise like you were running, for example. And you don't always need to fly through doors and fly through buildings really quickly so enemy players know where you are. Sometimes it's good to take your time in a gunfight and play it a little bit slower. You don't want to crouch walk because this hinders your ability to actually sprint or slide cancel if you need to. Aim down sight and walking is the best way to sneak up on an enemy team. So there we have it. There are 10 tips to catch enemy players off guard. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel as we do make extra content over there as well. And thank you very much for watching.